All right, happy Monday. What is up from New York City? The Fan and CBS Sports Network. Boomer and Gio are out. They take their one last vacation before the start of the NFL season. And so it is CeeLo and Jerry with you. Built Ford Tough Studio till 10 o'clock. We've got a surprise for you coming up at 6:20. That should be fun. And we're going positive. We're going to go positive to start the show. Because who wants to start a crappy Monday with a crappy baseball team or a crappy football team or a crappy basketball team or whatever other crap you can find? So we go positive. And we say good morning to one Chris Lopresti. What up, Chris?
Good morning, Jerry. Yes, all positivity. We got to have a fun week here, right? Especially for me, because next Tuesday is, as I like to call it, Radio New Year, and then I'm not heard from again until Rutgers plays its first basketball game. So let's have some fun.
Yeah, well, we will. And I'm serious when I'm talking about positivity, because while we could start with the Mets, we're going to put them off for a little while.
Okay.
Because I know sports radio, it's usually complain radio, so we could do that. But instead, I would much prefer to start with what we saw in the Bronx yesterday and what we have watched all year long and what we continue to watch. And when you see, and it's more obviously than just the back-to-back-to-back home runs, but that, you encapsulate that right there, and you look at three of what could be the best hitters we'll see in our lifetime stacked in a lineup. And man, if I don't know if you had a chance to watch on social media, even the Rocky announcers during that inning.
Yes.
And the reaction is phenomenal. Like I think it was the Soto home run. It was like, oh no, oh no, oh yeah, and then Judge with the home run. The guy in the background, uh-oh.
Yeah, like very understated.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's gone too.
And the Yankees wind up winning a series that they very well could have lost, but they end up doing yesterday what they needed to do. They take the series from the Rockies. They have that 1.5 game lead. But I mean, the sky is so weird. The baseball season is so freaking long.
Yeah.
That you go through these ridiculous ups, these terrible lows and downs, and then the truth is always somewhere in the middle. But the story with this Yankee team continues to be they can just flat out mash. The question will be, while this is awesome, will they do it in October?
I'm glad you got to the question, because I know we're all about positivity, and That was fun to watch yesterday. It's a nice sun splash Sunday afternoon in the Bronx. They're hitting home runs all over the place. But it's the Rockies. The Rockies are god-awful.
I know that. I know.
So this is, look, it's fun along, you just said, the regular season as long as it is, the marathon that it is.
And enjoy it.
It's fun along the way. It beats losing or watching teams that can't score, like the Mariners, who got Scott Service fired because they got the worst batting average in baseball. So it certainly beats that. But we've seen the MO from the Yankees. And I know it's a different construction. Soto wasn't here, and there's a couple different pieces. You know, Jazz Chisholm being back hopefully should help. And he certainly brings an energy and a life and a fire, which is great. But I've got to see it in the big moments against the better pitching staff.
You know what's amazing, though? So, like, if you think about what's coming for them in October, and there's not a team – I'm putting the Astros aside for a second. Aside from them, there is not a team in Major League Baseball that would scare me in terms of the Yankees. Now, you want to tell me, well, the Phillies, I'm not really buying them. They've been very average now for about 2 months or so, I would say.
Let's get to the World Series before we start worrying about the National League teams.
I know. I'm trying just to look at Major League Baseball in totality, because you basically play everybody now. So if I look at the National League in terms of if they got to the World Series, I really don't think, while the Padres are a nice story, the Dodgers spend the most and are always going to be difficult and tough, although they never seem to win the World Series. You can run down the list. The Phillies have been very average. The Diamondbacks have been ridiculous for the last month or so. Fine, but I still feel pretty good about with the Yankees in that scenario. You look at the American League and what they have to get through. Talk about the ups and the downs. The Astros were 10 games out in June and now have, I think it's a 7-game lead on Seattle in the AL West. They have found it. That is the one team that if they don't get picked off, that would concern me. Other than that, to me, this is the Yankees' year. And if it's not this year, then when?
Yeah, and that's mostly been the case in these last, whatever you want to call it, the Aaron Judge era, outside of, the 1 year with the Red Sox, really. It's been the Astros that's been their undoing. Sure. We know all about it. 3 ALCSs, except they've gone in the wrong direction. Those series have kind of gotten shorter and shorter as we've gone along. And that's where when they say, well, we got to the ALCS, so we were, one series away from getting to the Fall Classic. But you've gotten further and further away from being, I'm not going to say non-competitive in those series, but you feel like, okay, it's been more and more of a struggle, and those same issues that they've run into against Houston kind of rear their ugly head in the worst possible times, worst possible spots. Now, look, a couple years ago, I think Judge was just burnt out from the home run chase down the stretch, and hopefully that doesn't happen again. I know it's a little different right now. We still got a full month to go, but with each passing day, he hits more and more home runs. Now, all of a sudden, that 62, 63 is sort of back on,
but
back
65.
into view. Well, whatever the case may be, I'm just saying, like, it takes on, I think, more of a life the more success he has because it becomes a more realistic possibility. Now, the difference here is it's its own record. It's a couple years rather than talking
stress
about,
level has to be way down.
Yeah. So, from that standpoint, hopefully he can kind of just enjoy the ride a little bit and maybe not feel the pressure and the burden of it as much as he did a couple years ago.
And what you just said is interesting because I wonder how much the Yankee fan is enjoying the ride because all you do hear about, and I understand it because they're in the playoffs every year, and 2009 is now a long time ago. We're talking 15 years for the Yankees. That's an eternity.
And I think that was illustrated with the old timers celebration over the weekend. Those guys are talking about how old they are now. They want to get out of bed. They don't want to pick up a bat. They don't want to do anything. It's like, geez.
Right. So now if you're the Yankee fan, and I know you are, it's almost as if I feel like before the season began, it was, this team looks good, but until they win a World Series, it doesn't matter. Are you at least allowing yourself to enjoy what you're watching on a day-to-day basis, knowing that the end goal is still the same and it's something that has not been accomplished or achieved now in 15 years?
I think yes and no. I think game to game, day to day, it like I said, it beats the alternative of turning on. There have been certainly pockets of this season and in recent years where they go through these stretches and it's maddening because they can't get a hit with runners in scoring position, or they can't get a guy in from third base with less than 2 outs, or the lineup up and down outside of Judge is struggling. So right now it feels good because you've got Soto and Judge kind of going at the same time. Stanton is showing signs of life. Jazz comes off the IL and looks like, you watch this guy play third base right now.
You think he's been a third baseman?
Yeah.
I know.
So, those are all good things. They, of course, still have their holes and their shortcomings and guys that are not having the seasons you would have expected. But, yeah, I think when you touched on it and you look around the league, it's sort of one of those weird years where there's not a huge separation amongst teams. So I'm curious if and when we get to October and if and when the Yankees do make a deep run, because of that sort of lack of firepower throughout the league, should they go to the ALCS or the World Series, will it have the same feel and the same excitement or the same satisfaction if they do get to the top of the mountain? In a vacuum, sure, but comparing it to, like you said, the team from 2009 or the teams of the 90s and the great run that they had then, that part I'm curious about because baseball has changed so much. Certainly the construction of the Yankee roster, the lineup, just the way in which the game is played nowadays and the way it sometimes is played in October where we don't have as much action play-to-play, inning-to-inning as we once did. That's the part for me where, yes, I'm enjoying it, but I don't watch baseball, Major League Baseball, the same way I did in my younger years. How's that?
Yeah, but why?
Because the game, it's changed. I'll give you a great example. I'll give you a great example, okay? Or maybe not a great example, but something that stood out to me yesterday. Not to bring it to the Mets, more statistical box score thing. Jose Quintana pitches yesterday, right? He gets 19 outs, doesn't give up a run, didn't strike out a single batter.
Yeah.
Like, we don't see that anymore. It doesn't happen.
Right?
I went to the day game, what was it, Wednesday this past week, Yankees against the Guardians, the series finale. We went with there were 16 of us, a bunch of families, young kids in the stands, and they had fun, but they're more interested in, they're playing in the state, looking around, they're having fun, they're horsing around until a ball's put in play, which is not that often anymore. There's just not the same. Like, I remember going to the games as a kid with my dad or my mom or both and, like, being locked in on every pitch, keeping score, excited about the little things that were happening in a game. And again, there's positives and negatives to this. I don't want to make it sound like it's a terrible, boring product. It's just very different. I don't know if that's just because I'm getting older as well as compared to being a kid, but some of it's different.
I think our attention spans are, and that's part of the problem.
Phones.
I certainly, if you watch any Major League Baseball game, or just watch the highlight packages of the games on YouTube, and you will see more times than not that I shouldn't say most, I would venture to guess half the people that are in the camera shot are on their phones.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a baseball thing.
No.
I think that is a societal problem.
It is. I see it when I ride the subway.
The addiction to the phone is insane. So our attention spans are way down. Number two, because getting people to come to the ballpark has become such an issue, things like what goes on at Citi Field, which I think is a phenomenal stadium. I love it. To me, it's my favorite one. And I've been to a lot of them now. I think Citi Field it might be the best. That sounds crazy, but To me, I think it might be.
No, I agree with you. They do a lot of things right there.
Citi Field, if you want to go watch a game with kids, is the kids want to go to the batting cage. They want to throw the ball in that the dunk tank that's back. I don't know if that's even still there, but they've got all these things in that when you go over the Shea Bridge in the back, it's almost as if, I mean, there were games when my kids were younger, I'd miss 4 innings.
Right.
Because they were on the wiffle ball field. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Credit to what they did there. It's fun. I got videos and photos from when my kids were 5, 6, 7 years old. But you know what I remember about that? Those were innings I missed that I wasn't watching, or I was watching on the screen behind me.
Yeah.
In San Francisco, I missed 3 innings because my kid was going down the stupid Coca-Cola slide for an hour.
I think when you do the sort of the one-off where you're away on vacation, you're seeing a new park, and you've got young kids, certainly they're going to be. There's
What's the excuse for Citi Field?
Yeah, not so much.
Right, exactly. I just think our attention spans are not what they were. And while the game has changed, there's no doubt about it, I think they have changed it for the better. Stolen bases are up. You are seeing more, although the home run is still a big deal. I do feel like there's more contact in the game.
It's gotten a little better. I like, look, it's nothing against the rule changes that they've made in recent years.
The pitch clock has been great.
No, I like the pitch clock. I just think, and I don't have the numbers to back this up. So like I said, maybe it's me getting old man, get off my lawn type of thing, even though I haven't hit 40 just yet. Mm-hmm. But I just feel like if you go to a game, there's a lot more, I'm not even going to say downtime, but time where you feel like, I've got a few seconds. I'm going to talk to somebody. I'll look something on my phone because the ball may not be put in play as often as it once was.
Now 10-year-old Chris Lopresti, there was no phone.
Right.
There was nothing else to look at. So you stayed locked in on the game.
That's
and while the phone has become almost part of the product, especially with, I don't know if you can gamble in these stadiums or not. I'm not even sure because I don't do that. But I mean, you feel like with the fantasy baseball, the gambling, it's almost as if that phone is now a part of the product and the day. The problem is your eyes get locked on the phone.
Yeah.
Now you're not watching the game.
The action. Right.
You know?
Right.
Anyhow, all I know is I agree with you that it's not enough contact. That's fine. But what the Yankees can do on a daily basis is pretty special. Now, I'll go back a couple years ago and even beyond that when I would sit here and say you can rip the pitching all you want. The fact of the matter is the Yankees didn't hit in October. I mean, that is, you want to go to we can go all the way back to that wonderful fall of 17 where Craigie decided to take a vacation and the Yankees were on that run and you had the cheating Astros. Here's what I'll still say about that. You can tell me all you want about the garbage can and this and that. If you don't hit, you're not going to win.
I totally agree. And that's been my issue with the Yankees in these postseasons. And it's why, while I can enjoy aspects of the long 162-game seasons, I still in the back of my mind have that question mark. Some of the names have changed, but the overall feel and dynamic, for the most part, top to bottom, is similar. I had high hopes that it was going to be different this year. Soto coming in, he's had an excellent year. I was hoping Volpe would bring a little bit of a different dimension to the lineup and have a better second.
For a couple months.
Yeah, early on, out of the gate, he looked like, okay, hey, he made the adjustments, he made the changes, he's ready to go. It hasn't really happened. Even Verdugo out of the gate, you're like, oh, maybe they got something here. That's gone down the tank. Gleyber Torres in a walk year has not been what you'd expected him to be or what you would have hoped he would be.
Been better of late, though.
Yeah, I know, to the point where they have him hitting a leadoff. I mean, look, yesterday, obviously, hits a home run, and that's 4 RBIs at a leadoff spot catches your attention. But for you to look at the whole picture, season numbers are still a lot left to be desired there. DJ LeMahieu's shot, Rizzo's missed time. I mean, so look, I don't want to be the typical Yankee fan that complains. They're, 23 games over 500. Yeah. They're atop the division. They're clearly going to the playoffs. Those are all good things. It's simply me trying to look ahead and compare and contrast and say, okay, once we get to October, and granted, there's not a powerhouse top of the echelon, top of the heap, upper echelon team that the Yankees are staring up at. But are those same issues going to rear their ugly head? So the answer we're not going to have until October, but it's why I'm not willing to dive all the way in just yet.
But you know why it shouldn't? It shouldn't because, now, I know if I assume this, it's stupid of me because with Giancarlo Stanton, he could be injured tomorrow. But if you assume just for a second that those injuries are behind him, he's healthy, you see what he's doing right now. Man, those guys back to back to back, there shouldn't be a situation where they can't put runs on the board. There just shouldn't, because you've got to pitch to a couple of them. You want to, if you're going to leave it as Soto, Judge, Stanton, you have to pitch to Soto because of those two behemoths behind him.
Yeah.
And if you got Soto on base, you say, all right, well, we'll walk Judge. Okay, but if Stanton's doing what he's doing, you want to face him? Like all of a sudden, you've got a situation that I think they envisioned when they put this together that should scare the hell out of opposing teams.
And here's the good thing for Judge, at least on paper, right? Because the one knock you can really have against Judge so far in his career has been the lack of postseason success, right? So if this is the way they're going to go, and like you said, we assume health for those big guys and that no one's going down and they're going to be there in October. If he's sandwiched by a guy in Soto who it's a smaller sample size, but we have seen him produce in the postseason. He's won a World Series. And we know that Stanton, really, when you look at since he's come aboard, for the most part, overall, the guys he's been probably their best postseason hitter. So you can put Judge between those two. And again, Stanton is, maybe he's not 100%, but he's healthy enough to play and the swing looks decent. I would think that bodes well and gives Judge his best opportunity to have sort of, we'll call it a breakout postseason that we haven't seen from him just yet.
Now, the question mark would be the pitching. And while I know what I'm getting from Garrett Cole when he makes the start, the problem is he's not going out there every single day. It's amazing I'm going to say this on August 26th. You tell me what Carlos Rodon is. I don't know. Yeah. I really don't. I mean, even this season alone, I feel like you've gotten everything from Rodon this year. You've gotten the great Rodon, you've gotten the crappy Rodon, which we've seen so far in a couple of seasons, and everything in between. So if I sit there and I put him out there in game 2, if that would be the case, of a playoff series, would you be stunned if I told you he gave you 6 innings of 2-hit ball, or would you be stunned if I told you he was out after 2/3 of an inning?
Neither, and right? I think that's the enigma. And now we came into the season, the bar was set so low because of how disappointing last year was, that taking the good with the bad, and like you said, sort of the Jekyll and Hyde act, is I feel like we haven't focused on it as much this year as maybe we would in years past for a high-profile, expensive free agent signing, especially the fact that Cole is there, the team overall has played well, Judge is having another great season. It sort of covers up some of those things. But yeah, when you look at what they brought him here to do, you want to be able to send him into game 2 of that playoff series and feel very confident that he's going to give you at least an opportunity to win. Some days he does, some days he doesn't. Even the days that he does, though, I feel like it's a struggle sometimes just to get through 5 or 6 innings. There's not a lot of starts where he's just breezing through. I mean, yeah, if I go through his game log for the season, you can pick out a few. I was at a start he made against, was it the Angels in April early on? The Yankees lost that game, but he, I think, had a no-hitter into the middle innings. He was looking good. So he does have those days here and there, but more often than not, I feel like he's grinding through these starts, and it's not coming easy, but it's certainly been better. At least he's taken the ball every turn through the rotation, hasn't had to miss time, hasn't had any flare-ups with fans in the crowd or pitching coaches like he did a year ago. So from that standpoint, it's been a little bit better. But yeah, am I going to have full confidence in him pitching game 2 of a playoff series? No, I am not.
What's interesting as you're sitting there talking about his starts is if I look back to April, May, June, July, now we're into August and almost the end of August, at different points of the season, I would tell you Clark Schmidt was their best pitcher. And if Cole was there, he's your number 2. At other parts of the season, I would tell you Luis Gil was on track to win the Cy Young and was their best pitcher. And when Cole comes back, he'll be the number 2. There have been starts where I say, that's the Rodon that they paid all this money to. That's your number 2. And as I sit here on August 26th, I don't know who their number 2 pitcher is.
I don't think they know who their number 2 pitcher is. It's sort of Cole, and it's not been vintage Cole, obviously, because he missed a chunk of the year. And while he's, I think, trending in the right direction, like I think he's figuring out, because he's a smart veteran pitcher at this point, he's figuring out ways to get through these starts. I still don't see a guy, and this is, purely just my eyes. I have no idea. I'm not trying to start any trouble. I don't see a guy that looks fully comfortable and perhaps not fully healthy. That I don't know. But, his last start against the Guardians was a perfect example. He pitched, what was it? 6 innings of 1-run ball or shutout ball, 5 walks. Strikeouts were down, so it's like he's sort of doing more pitching than he is throwing. But obviously he's going to be the guy. After that, start to start, like you said, I think with any of those guys, you just asked him about Rodon, would you be surprised in a playoff game if he pitched great or got blown up? I think that you could apply that to anyone outside of Cole right now.
Which would stun me if that happened to him.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But outside of that, Stroman, Cortez, Rodon, you want to throw Gil and Schmidt in there as well, whether one stays in the rotation, one goes to the bullpen, however they're going to figure that out if and when everybody gets back healthy. None of those guys would I say, like, you know what, I'd bet the mortgage that they're gonna put forth a good outing tonight. I have no idea.
All right, we are just getting started, 20 after 6. When we come back, we have got Pat Boyle sitting in for CeeLo, who is sitting in for me. as we go down the depth chart. Looking forward to hearing from Pat. We've got you guys calling up, too, at some point this morning. 888-808-1019 is the number. It is the Boomer and Geo program coming out on a Monday right here on the Fan and CBS Sports Network.